So Laura, you and I, we get this question all the time. If I have 50-50 custody or parenting time with my child, do I have to pay child support? So,
the answer is yes.
Will I have to pay my spouse child support if we split custody? In other words, if we get equal time with our children.
So I'm the higher earning parent, and isn't a 50-50 time of possession between both parents the best way for me not to have to pay child support? The answer is no. Sorry.
Sorry. Sorry.
So on a 50-50 placement schedule, yes, a higher earner can expect to pay some kind of child support here.
Most people think when they come in, if they are agreeing to a 50-50 possession, that neither parent will have to pay child support. It's typically not true.
I get this reaction from people all the time when I talk about child support. They say, hey, look, we share 50-50 custody. There shouldn't be any money that goes back and forth. That's unfair. Well, this is how states, every state I know about, this is how states calculate child support. They take the incomes of the parents. They put that together. They amalgamate those incomes. And then the child gets a percentage of the income. So say a child gets 10% of the total income. Now, one parent makes more and one parent makes less. So one parent is going to pay more of that income that goes to the child than the other parent because the other parent makes less.
If you have one parent who is making a significant amount of income higher than the other, then that parent is going to be paying some child support to the other parent, just to sort of equalize out the situation, living experience for the child at both households.
Then the calculation of child support is determined by the net resources of the parents. So the parent that has greater net resources to calculate that will pay the difference or offset to the other parent.
You can either agree to a child support amount between the parents, but if you don't agree, then we have something called guidelines. So we have a formula, a preset formula that looks at your income and will determine and calculate what that child support is.
Don't expect that just because you have 50-50, there's no child support, because we have seen some pretty surprised faces.
Very surprised faces. And, just to leave it off on this, the child support is the right of the child.
The way child support is calculated in most states seems pretty stupid, right? There isn't much common sense here. So what if one parent makes more money? When you have shared parenting and 50-50 custody, each parent has equal opportunity to buy things for a child. If one parent makes more, they can just put that extra money towards the child themselves. Why should the lower-earning parent decide how the extra income should be spent? They literally haven't earned the right to do so. One argument lawyers make is that child support is needed to equalize, or balance out, living standards between homes. But that doesn't necessarily help the child. For example, maybe the poorer parent will spend the money on their own personal entertainment, while the better-off parent would have invested the funds in the child's education.
You know, if you don't get an education, you're going to end up digging ditches or working as a waitress.
You also hear lawyers and judges say that funds need to be set aside for the child, that it's the child's money. Yeah, but the child has no say in how the funds are spent. Only the parents do. Again, you have to ask why the lower-income parent is allowed to choose how the other parent's money is used. Shouldn't each parent be the one to decide what happens to his or her own earnings? It shouldn't be forgotten that, with 50-50 custody, the higher-earning parent naturally spends more on kids. Making the higher earner hand over child support to the other parent is unfair and doesn't help the child. The system encourages parents to earn less, which is not good for children. On this issue, the intuition of parents is correct. The child support formula, the income shares formula, doesn't make sense. No child support should have to be paid when parents have equal parenting time.